Hello and welcome to The Gist. I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, and I'm here every week breaking down all the things happening in pop culture. And this week, we are on our second of our three-part series covering the Vanderpump Rules reunion. And man, oh man, first of all, I said this last week, but Peacock is the gift that keeps giving with these supersized editions and uncensored. I don't know why, but like we haven't thought of this before, but Peacock needs to deliver like everything uncensored. I mean, it would be gangbusters for them. They would get so many downloads and so many subscribers if they came out and said all Bravo shows are going to be uncensored on Peacock, because it is like a completely different viewing experience. It is so good. But getting into this second part, because it was a doozy. We pick up right from where we left off from last week. If you haven't listened to last week's recap, it's available now. But it ends with kind of an explosive moment where James is kind of coming at Lisa Vanderpump because, you know, he's like, you're sticking up for Tom Sandoval a little bit too much. And I agree. I get that she has since come out, since the last episode aired, that, you know, she doesn't like when everybody is ganging up on one person. But it's like, well, when that one person is a vile human who did something horrible and is taking no accountability for it, they kind of deserve it. So, you know, it's like she probably needs to just like keep her quiet a little bit more. But James is, you know, out of his seat. He's leaving because he's got to pee. And he tells the producers, like in the back, he's like, oh yeah. He's like, sorry, every time I start hearing Sandoval speak, I get anxious and angry, and then I got to pee. And so he goes, and then meanwhile, you know, Lala's still going at Sandoval, and Sandoval's like, you're such a narcissist. And she is like, I may have the biggest ego, bigger than this building, but I'm not a narcissist. And I love that, because I love when Lala, she like totally is accountable for who she is and what she is. And so I love that she's like, I have this huge ego, but I'm not a narcissist. And Tom, under his breath, says, you pulled your IUD the day you found out Stassi was pregnant, which is like, first of all, what does that have to do with anything? And second of all, disgusting. Like, where does he get off talking about anything that has to do with a woman's body, her right to have a baby, any of that? And Lala, oh boy, she reacted instantly. As soon as the episode aired, she took to Instagram and she gave her comments, and yeah, Mama Bear wasn't happy about that. But yeah, but who would be? And that was a disgusting comment. And, you know, he's a vile human, as we've said. So I think, so that was the kind of one of the things that sort of just kicked everything off, which led into talking about the Randall issues that had come out. And then obviously Lala and Randall's breakup. And, you know, we learned that Randall and Harvey Weinstein had the same spokesperson, which is really not surprising. Some folks kind of questioned sort of Lala's timeline of it all. Was she sleeping with him to get a role? Did she get the role and then started sleeping with him? So she, you know, answers some of that. And there's, you know, some talk about, you know, in Hollywood, that's just like what you do. You like sleep with directors and you sleep with like the money guys to like get roles and to get fame. And James said something to the effect of like, oh yeah, that's something that I would never do, or whatever. And Lisa's like, well, you slept with Kristen to get on this show. And he's like, no, I have my own thing going on, and you should be thanking me, Lisa, for what I'm bringing to the show. Lala and James are just, they're so funny to watch, and they just have the best sort of like quick comebacks. They're not always great, but like the things that come out of their mouths are entertaining to watch. So I love that. And then we like basically, you know, we hash through some of that a bit, and then we're breaking for lunch. And so we start off with lunch. Oh God, right before the lunch comment, they like cut to Tom Schwartz for some comment, and his hair is like flock of seagulls, like flying all over the place. And Sandoval looks at him and is like, dude, you gotta like run your fingers through your hair. And then it cuts to Katie, and she's like mouthing to him like, your hair. So he's like, what? What's going on? I mean, the guy is just like not there, which we learn why in a little bit, but he's very strange. Everyone breaks for lunch. They walk off, except for Tom Schwartz, who stays on the set to start doing push ups. Like, and then, I noticed everybody is having lunch together. They're all kind of sitting together and eating. Obviously, Tom and goes to Raquel's trailer, Tom Sandoval, but Schwartz is not with them. So I guess Schwartz was just sort of isolated and alone during that time. And it's sad because he is ultimately part of the friend group, but he has been this pawn for Sandoval, and everybody's like done with him. And so, but then he's not with Sandoval because Sandoval's over with Raquel trying to coach her for her part. And, so he gets over to the trailer and they have like this sit down scene that's like they clearly know is being filmed. And Sandoval's like trying to rehash what just happened on the stage. And she's like, oh, I know, I've been watching it all. And he's like, oh. And then she's like, and it's crazy. Like they're just trying to make us out to be liars. And Tom's like, yeah, they're making us out to be pathological liars. And she's like, but we haven't even lied about anything except for this affair, which is just a wild comment. I mean, it was so wild that even Sandoval's face when she said it, he's like, yeah, like, yeah, I guess. And then he's also probably like, and we also lied like about so many things that go along with this affair. So it's bad. And he's a liar in general. So, but then she starts questioning Tom about, she's like, I'm a little confused about some of the things I'm seeing because it's sounding like you guys did have intimacy when you were telling me that you weren't. And Tom has to have some, I don't know, he's like going off about some green sparkly pants and was like, yeah, she always used to hate like what I was wearing. And then all of a sudden one day she was just like, oh, you're the best at fashion. And she was like being nice. And so it was like, we were having that. And then, he's like, I'm nervous for you to go out there. And she's like, I know. And like, we should have done all of this way earlier. And so they basically like hug and leave. And Tom walks out and immediately is just like, okay, everyone, let's take the cameras down because I need some time with Raquel without cameras. And the producer comes out and is like, absolutely not. You're not allowed to do that. Like, if you guys are together, you're being filmed. So you can't have the cameras off. They get in a fight. I think that Tom may have won because eventually we get like, they take the cameras down and we don't see that they walk away from each other. So I'm guessing that they did have some time because Tom was throwing a tantrum and, being childish. And he's obviously wants to talk to her alone without cameras because he does have to coach her. He has to they have to get their story straight. They have to talk about what they're going to go out and what their story is going to be when they're both on stage together. He probably also needs to tell her like what he has said so far in like his one-on-ones and other things because it's not going to all add up. So that was pretty wild. And then we get back into the set and Allie joins, James's girlfriend. And it's cute. Everyone seems to like her, right? Like everyone's like looking at her and they're like smiling at her and everyone just seems to like enjoy her energy, which I think is great. We talk a little bit about Allie and James's relationship. Everyone seems to be supportive. Lisa Vanderpump's supportive. She admits that she has like seen the show. She's seen James in previous relationships. She's seen some of his antics. She's like, no, I don't like it. But it is what it is. They talk about the comment that Raquel made about how James called her mother fat and said that his dad was miserable because he was with this like fat woman. And he's like, I didn't like saying that. Like that wasn't my finest moment. But then we learned that Raquel's mom was like talking about James's penis at the dinner table in front of like their grandma. And he's like, she was like obsessed with that. And she was like always talking about like, was I circumcised or not? And what's it like? And it's wild. And if that's Raquel's mom, and if that's a true story, like that apple didn't fall far from that tree, it sounds like. But that conversation sort of leads to drinking, which, we find out Allie has been taking a break from drinking. She's like, we're both sort of taking breaks at times. I don't love when James drinks and when he drinks too much. And And that conversation gets heated because then Sandoval starts piling on like, yeah, you're getting drunk and you got us kicked out of this club and we lost like this business opportunity. And so James once again is out of his seat and, leaving because apparently every time Sandoval speaks, he has to pee. So he's out of his seat again. I love how annoyed Andy is. And by the way, when Andy, again at the beginning, when he finally came back, the first time he had left, I love that once again, that's the second time in this reunion so far that we've seen Andy tell James to sit in his fucking chair. And hearing Andy Cohen curse is a gift from the Bravo gods that I didn't know I needed. And again, Peacock, give it to me every reunion. If I could watch this like Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion from this last week, uncensored, oof, amazing. But we end up getting James back, thankfully, and he's back. He's going to stay seated. And then we move into Sheena and Raquel's restraining order conversation. Andy has to explain that, Sheena's going to have to leave in order for Raquel to come. And we learn, but Andy's like, before we do, we want to start talking a little bit about the fallout so that Sheena's here for some of it. So first of all, let's talk about, what really happened after Watch What Happens Live. You guys were like you guys were besties, you guys were having a great time. You learn that this happens. What sort of happens with all of that? And, he's like, did you punch her? And Sheena's basically like, look, we have a court date on the 29th. I can't speak about anything until then. And he's like, you can't tell me whether or not you punched her. And she's like, I can't speak about anything until after the 29th. And so Andy's like annoyed with that, obviously, but then he's like, okay, does anyone here think that she punched her? And I love like Sheena, if you notice, she like kind of like starts doing things with her nails to show that she can't make a fist, clearly signaling to the other side of the couch or the stools, like to say something. And Katie took the bait and was like, yeah, look at Sheena's nails. She can't even make a fist. Like she didn't punch her in the face. So then Andy asks, Sandoval, what do you think? And Sandoval has this like dramatic moment of silence that he probably learned in some sort of like low rent acting class. And Lisa Vanderpump's like, what's so hard about this? Like, why are you having such a hard time answering? He's like, well, I'm in between a rock and a hard place because I want to be thoughtful of my, relationship with Sheena, at which point Ariana is like, you don't have a relationship with Sheena. And then he says, and the truth. And Sheena's like, oh, so here we go. So then Sandoval starts like breaking down what he remembers to be the case, which is that he said he overheard on this like phone call between Ariana and Sheena that Sheena said that she punched that bitch in the face or something like that. And they both are like, absolutely, that didn't happen. That didn't happen ever. Lala's like, I've talked to Sheena multiple times about it after it happened. She called me and never once did she say she punched her in the face. And, and Lisa Vanderpump chimes in. It's like, I mean, I think she slapped her. It's like, again, Lisa, like, silence is golden. And then everyone was like, talking kind of about this like phone call that happened and the timeline of the phone call and who heard what. But again, like everyone's piling on and proving that Sandoval is just lying over and over and over to get his narrative out, and Raquel's in this case. And, and then they kind of start talking a little bit about like, the fact that Raquel and Sheena were so close. And she's like, you said all of these things. You were kind of like ride or die for Raquel, but did you never think anything? And Sheena's like, well, I did have some suspicions because Lala started thinking about certain things and saying things. And then Katie like started bringing me some things. And she's like, but I sat down with Ariana and we learned that they had a sit down. And she's like, I confronted her about these rumors that were happening and that there was like some questions about Tom and Raquel's relationship. And she was like, but she was absolutely confident that there was nothing going on. And she turned it down. So she said, I had to believe, my best friend Ariana, that this is like not something that I'm going to worry about. And so then the story shifts a little bit to Sandoval, thinking like getting hit again, going through this like narrative that they had these secret problems, and he's like so ride or die for this storyline that Ariana's like, that's not the case. Like, and he's like, oh, every time we would be arguing and then the cameras would roll, she would like completely change. And she's like, that's not true. And he's like, we would never talk about problems. She's like, and Ariana's like, I've talked about intimacy problems. I've talked about body weight issues. I've talked about, my vagina. I've talked about all of these things. And we absolutely have talked about things. We had intimacy issues at times, but most relationships either struggle with intimacy or money or both. And we didn't have money problems. We had intimacy problems, but we talked about them on the show. We never once were like hiding anything for the show and or because of the show and from her perspective. And he just keeps being like, we absolutely were. We like, she would coach me and tell me not to say things. And it was, so, I mean, I think he's truly believing this lie. I think this is like, he's told himself this story. He's told Raquel this story so much that this is now his reality as well. And it's just, it is what it is. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of meat on that bone because everybody seems to be debunking that in every which way. Um, and they get in this like a weird fight about who coached who on how to navigate the show. And Ariana's like, you always told me if someone was saying something about you that wasn't true, don't let them finish the sentence. And she goes, so I'm going to keep saying things. And he's like, that was your tactic, that was your tactic. And she's like, that was your tactic. And like they started going back and forth about it. And then at one point Sandoval, it like says something like, that was your tactic, motherfucker. And I don't think Ariana heard it, but Lisa sure did. And Lisa's like, oh my God, did you just call her a motherfucker? And his reaction was like, oh yeah, no big deal. It's like, actually it is. Like, that's not what you call a woman that you're apparently going to start crying in an hour about how much you love. So that wasn't a great look for him, but what is certainly not those sparkly green pants. And so then we get back to that, Sheena's going to have to exit. And Andy's like, but before you go, I have something for you from Raquel. She's not allowed to give you in person. And we learn that Raquel has filed I guess, dismissal to dismiss the restraining order, but it was only filed the day of the reunion. And it obviously didn't go through. So Raquel knew that like that wasn't going to allow them to be on the same stage still. So, and at first I thought, okay, this was her tactic to either one, get out of the reunion altogether, or two, she definitely did not want to sit on the stage with Sheena. And now I'm thinking like, actually, she just didn't like, she probably had hoped that this restraining order would keep her from having to film either for a long time or at all with the rest of the cast. But it's clear she wants to film. And so, because the camera's on her the whole time in the trailer and she's, giving lots of faces. And so it's like that, I'm still like unclear as to why she did this restraining order, because then to turn around and dismiss it is like, it's basically her admitting that none of it happened and that that story was a lie. So going back to when she said that she only lied about the affair, it's like, well, then did you also lie about Sheena punching you? Because now that has been dropped. So, so that comes out and, Sheena starts crying and everybody's like getting really emotional because she's like, I was ride or die for this girl and I would have done anything for her. I gave her a home when she didn't have one. I was everything to her. I stood up for her for so many things. And the fact that she would do this to me is so damaging because I already was so betrayed by what she did to Ariana and what Tom had done. And it felt like such a betrayal because I was this person that was like defending them. And to turn around and do this feels so much worse. But then we learn like the toll it has taken on her personal life where, she's talking about how she's like having breakdowns at home and her daughter is seeing her and her daughter's hyperventilating because she doesn't like seeing her mom cry like that. And Lala's crying because she's just like, this is so, like, this has been so horrible. And she was like, and the court system is horrible. And you guys would be in this for way too long and it wouldn't go your way potentially. And she's like, so the fact that this is getting dropped is awesome. She's like, I know your legal team was like ready to go and ready to burn this bitch to the ground, but like, it's better this way. And it was a really nice touching moment. And there was another moment too where Lala really talks about her sort of struggles. It was when Allie was out and she was being questioned about why she had that conversation with Allie on the boat about James and being careful about James. And she's got really vulnerable and she was like, this has just been a really, really hard year. And I went through a lot and it's just been really like toxic, and people have rallied around me and it made me feel really good. But it was nice to see that vulnerable Lala, especially because, I love Lala's claws. And when she comes for someone, like, you never want to be on the receiving end of Lala's tirades. But I mean, because she goes there and man, she goes for the jugular. But it's good. And Lisa even says, she's like, I love this version of Lala. Like, I don't want the angry Lala. I love when you're, vulnerable. Like, let yourself be. And she was, and she had that moment. And and I going back to the Sheena part of it, it's like, it's nice to see her really stand up for her friend in this way and understand that they have this common bond of motherhood. And that it's like, I wouldn't want this for my worst enemy with a child to have to go through these things that you're going through. And she truly means that. And I think that was a really nice way to sort of kind of put a pin in it. Oh, one other thing that came out after the letter is that meanwhile, while Sheena's crying, Raquel is just like sitting in the back, like watching it all, like no empathy on her face. She doesn't seem touched. She doesn't seem like she's done anything wrong. I mean, outside of being like, I should have written her a personal letter. It's like, why? Like, do you even know how to write? I mean, certainly doesn't know how to spell. I mean, I feel like if she wrote her a letter, it would just be like a lot of drawings. And man, she is a superhuman in a very bad way. But we learned that, the comment came up about how Sheena was like, I would be comfortable with Raquel in my bed, when Allie questioned and was like, would you be fine with her at the Abbey with Brock by himself? And she was like, yeah, I'd be fine with them sleeping in our bed together. And so that comment came up, and we learn that they show some unseen footage that Brock and Sheena and Raquel did all sleep in the same bed. Sheena actually admitted this on the stage, that they slept in the same bed. And she was like, yeah, in Vegas one time, and I was in between them, and it was no big deal. But like, she came into the room and was like, oh, are you guys going to sleep? I don't want to sleep alone. Can I sleep with you? Which is wild, because I mean, this is the Raquel, like the psychological things that are going on with Raquel, where she can't be alone and she has to be like in bed with other people, is like really, really weird. And that's the only way I know how to put it. But, so we learn about that. And then we see this unseen footage from the girls trip where she's talking about like sleeping in the same bed with them. And Lala's like, wait, have you guys had a threesome? And she's like, no. And I think it was Christina Kelly's like, not yet. And the face that Raquel makes, and Lala was like, wow. She's like, this is a slippery slope. Like, you guys are headed down a bad direction. And so, and I think that that's where all of these Brock rumors just sort of stem from, because obviously there was stuff going on, and it doesn't sound like it maybe was sexual, but I mean, could have very well gotten there given Raquel's track record. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, so anyways, Sheena has to leave. She gives Andy this vinyl, Good as Gold, as she's exiting. She makes her exit. And then everyone's getting ready for Raquel to come out. Then we flash to the one-on-one interview from the previous day with Raquel. And, I felt like Andy asked some questions, but I didn't get some hard hitting ones. And I'm hoping that that's what we're saving for this finale. Um, you know, he asked about like how it all came to be. And she talks about like Sandoval, he made me feel heard and seen, what she hadn't felt that before, not with James. Um, she just overall she just kind of had like a yeah, like it wasn't great. I'm trying to take accountability. I made some mistakes, but ultimately like that's why I'm here is I'm going to pay for these things and I see now that it was wrong. But in the moment it didn't feel that way because of the things that I was hearing. And then at one point Andy was like, it sounds as though you're sort of even blaming Ariana for it. And she was like, she starts being like, well, it did sort of seem that Ariana was in denial, because like Tom would say things to me like, he like would tell her about our time together or ask her like how she felt about it. And she was like, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. And, so it just seemed like she didn't realize like all the signs that were going on. And so and he's like, well, it probably wasn't her fault that she wasn't seeing these things. She just trusted both of you. And he asks, how do you feel about, seeing everyone? And she's like, I'm scared. I'm definitely scared to see Ariana. And he's like, what's the future hold? Do you, are you going to be on the show anymore? And she's like, I want to be. And it's like, of course you do. That's what this has all been about. It's the only reason that you came out swinging the way that you did this season is because James and you broke up and you were like, I got to stay on this show. So I'm going to have storyline. And it's why all of this came to be. And so it's her obsession with fame that got her here. And now she's like one of the most hated women in America. And so it's pretty wild, but that was about it for the one-on-one. Again, I'm hoping that we like saved some of it because it felt a little watered down. Um, I guess Andy did ask, he was like, I think I can't tell if like what you're doing and feeling is like because your parents are feeling this way or Tom Sandoval is telling you certain things or if this is like your doing. And she didn't really confirm or deny either way what was kind of happening there. Um, she did confirm because Andy was like, did Tom prep you for the reunion? Did he coach you? And she confirmed, she's like, oh yeah, I mean, like basically all we've talked about is the reunion. So we did like talk and, we needed to make sure that we got our story straight, which there it is. Like right there, she just confirmed everything Ariana said previously is that Tom would coach people and coach her ahead of reunions to control narratives or to say like what to do in these situations, like where he, claims he doesn't do that. Now we cut to the stage. Andy says that Raquel's coming out. Schwartz pulls out this massive bottle of pills and Sandoval's like, what the fuck is that? And he's like, Xanax. And everybody's like, what is going on? I mean, so we see Schwartz biting, okay, biting, meaning it's going to hit his system instantly, biting on this pill. Ariana's like, did you just take E? And then everybody's like, what are you doing taking pills right now? Like, what is happening? And Schwartz starts whispering in his ear, dude, just tell him, like, tell people it's none of their business. This is your medication. Like, they shouldn't be asking you about your medical stuff. Like, he's coaching him right in front of our eyes, what to do in this situation. Meanwhile, he's like, it's Klonopin. Like, it's something I take once a month, like for anxiety. Like, this has been a big day. I needed it. But everyone's like, yeah, you don't need to be doing it right now. But as I said earlier, when his hair was flock of seagulls, it was like he didn't seem like he was all there. So something told me he had already, bitten down on a couple of Xanax before he came out. So that was wild. And then Raquel walks out. Everybody's like not looking at her. She takes her seat, and we get the end of part 2. And then we see the trailer for next week. It looks again, explosive. It looks amazing. We're getting some serious breakdown waterworks from Sandoval. We're getting a breakdown from Ariana. We see again dead Bambi eyes from Raquel. She seems again like she has no real remorse or empathy for anyone else in this situation. And we're still all like chomping at the bit for what this like secret information that none of the cast knows is. So that is yet to be seen. So more to come, but part 2, very good. Again, if you have not watched it on Peacock, uncensored, I highly recommend it. And we will be back next week. On Monday, we are doing our Bravo breakdown episode. So we're back in the mix of things. We've got 2 explosive reunions. First, the Summer House and the Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion both started. And then also some episodes of Atlanta to cover. And then next Thursday, we will be back with the conclusion of our 3-part Vanderpump Rules reunion coverage. And yeah, and I can't wait. I literally need it right now. So, but I hope that you guys all enjoyed it. I hope that you are, feeling the life that I am feeling from this Peacock version. And I hope that you will come back next week for the conclusion. Don't forget, rate and subscribe. And then follow me. I'm at CM Vetrano. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. And I would love to connect with all of you. But until next week, have a great weekend. And we'll talk soon. Bye.